we're affecting the physics and the biomechanics of the nose in a very unobtrusive, non-pharma way. That's how it works.
If health is your goal, frying is the stupidest things we've ever invented to do to our food.
The cool thing about using herbal medicine is it gives you an opportunity to get a lot of diverse bugs in your gut. And that's what we so desperately lack.
Christmas Day 2022, I attempted suicide. Thank God I am alive today and extremely thankful to be alive.
I'm a product of my failures. I'm not a product of success. What does success teach me? I got lucky. You know what failure taught me? This is where you need to work. This is where you're having shortcomings.
This is Vibe Science, a top 100 wellness podcast presented by the Radcast Network, breaking wellness barriers and making health truly personal. Here's your host, Ryan Alford.
It's a fabulous Tuesday here in South Carolina. I hope you're doing fabulous. Where are we this morning?
We are in the Bay Area, 7 miles south of Stanford University. Not everybody, including you, is walking around with your CT of your head. If you are, you're very special. I was, because I had a problem. But in any event, I ended up essentially using all of the machine learning and AI work that we've done at Sound Health, and that's my expertise, to be able to get a CT accurate representation of your skull just based on a selfie. So that's the big tech innovation that we have here, right?
Wow.
So, if you're going to go pick up our band or order it online or pick it up from Cedars-Sinai or from Stanford, the first thing it'll have you do is scan your face on your iPhone or your Android phone. That lets us set up the precise vibratory sound and vibration that we play through your bones with a bone conduction headphone that's on your forehead. And that's what decongests you. So now coming back to the study. So we had 50 people, 2 10-minute doses, and they responded better than Flonase, 90% response rate to a standard pharmaceutical congestion score that Flonase and every pharmaceutical uses to track congestion, right? And then we went to the FDA, and the FDA is like, and we published that, by the way. That's all of the stuff is published. I'm happy to send you and the users our entire science repository. But that was published, and we went to the FDA with that publication in one of the largest and most tough peer-reviewed journals. It's called IFAR, International Forum of Allergy and Rhinology. And the FDA said, whoa, we've never heard anything like this. We need you guys to go. Exactly. We haven't heard or felt anything like it. I love it. Exactly. And so what ended up happening was that they told us that we need to do a gold standard study, which would essentially be a de novo. A de novo means never done before, right? And we got I'm going to say this, proctologist treatment because we never had it. Nothing was available, number one. Number two, the FDA had just gotten hit on the wrist for the epinephrine debacle, right? They kept epinephrine on the shelves in oral form. So we became the poster child for deliberation and diligence, which, by the way, was a 2-year effort. And so we had them co-develop the first ever study to answer your question, which is how effective is this versus 14 other over-the-counter medications before they would give us a de novo FDA clearance. Well, that study is published now. It's a landmark study. I don't think anybody's done anything like it for any device. So we had 5 nationwide centers across multiple allergy seasons, across multiple age groups and multiple face sizes, because they wanted to make sure that it works for Caucasians, for Asians, for African Americans, the whole 9 yards. And we got that gold standard data to them in 2024. 2023. 2024, we got clearance, and we started shipping in the summer last year, just a year ago today. Now we have over 7,000 people on the band, and we have the largest living database of nasal congestion sufferers in the world. The people with the resonant frequency over time improved. So 2 weeks later, their nasal symptoms dropped by almost 50%. And we actually have endoscopic evidence. I'm happy to send you videos that show you the cavity changing. So coming back to your wife's question, sinus infections suck because they basically ultimately there's inflammation and your nasal cavity gets blocked. So you can't breathe through your nose. If you don't breathe through your nose, you're not getting enough oxygen to your brain. If you're not getting enough oxygen to your brain, you're usually feeling fatigued. You're usually feeling foggy. More importantly, what it does is if you block your sinuses, and this is a Nobel Prize winning discovery that scientists made in 1991, I believe, you are killing the nitric oxide production in your body. The nitric oxide molecule is the most important molecule for respiratory health, immune health, and making sure that your entire respiratory system is carrying oxygen appropriately to all the parts of your body to energize your body, right? So when you get a sinus infection or a nasal cavity blockage, you essentially are shutting down the natural immune system of the body, number one. Number two, you're letting all of the bacteria propagate and actually do their bad thing. And over time, what ends up happening is if you use steroids or if you use chemicals, you're counteracting the wellness principle.
This was topical for me. I introduced like olive oil into my diet 20 years ago, like we should have.
More health problems come from damaged oils than any other part of nutrition. And more health benefits come from you making the oil change you need to make, just like in your car, right?
Yeah. That engine doesn't run if it doesn't have good oil.
Yeah, exactly. Take the dirty oil out and replace it with clean oil.
It sounds to me, though, there is no healthy cooking oil then.
There is healthy oil, but there's no healthy cooking with oil.
Yeah. Because they've been, that's been the rage. Oh, peanut oil is better than this. Oh, this oil is better than that. But I'm hearing from you, no oil cooked or fried is good.
What is true is that the better the oil is for you when it's good, the worse it becomes when you fry it. So omega-3 and omega-6 are very sensitive to damage. So if you're going to fry, and this is like there's no good oil for frying, but if you're going to fry, the least damage is done with hard fats. So coconut and tallow and lard, those kind of fats.
And that's 100% contrary to what people, I think if you ask 10 people on the street, they would say, "Oh, I use olive oil for my cooking." And I just heard from you that's the worst you could do.
Well, olive oil is sort of in the middle because it doesn't have any omega-3s in them. They're the most sensitive. Okay. And then omega-6 is only 10%. And omega-3 and omega-6 is the only thing you need to have. You must have from your fat and oil intake.
That inflammation, because that's the big thing they promoted. They say, they cause inflammation. It causes inflammation.
And omega-6s, when they're not damaged, cause inflammation as part of healing. But when the healing is done, they don't cause it anymore. So that's just the system in the body. And if they're damaged, they can cause chronic inflammation, but it's the damaged molecules that are doing that, not the omega-6s. And most people don't get enough omega-3s. And omega-3s are very powerfully anti-inflammatory. So we got to do two things. We got to get our omega-6s made with health in mind, not damaged. And we need to bring in the omega-3s that are too low in almost everybody's diet. And when you get the ratio right and they're not damaged, they give you more energy, 40 to 60% in athletes within 30 days if they do their sport to exhaustion. And they're taking like a tablespoon per 50 pounds of body weight per day. That was our measure. 40 to 60% in 30 days. Crazy. No extra practice, just more energy. It takes them longer to get tired, right? Because they increase metabolic rate and oxidation rate. And so they have better performance, they recover quicker, and they heal quicker from injuries. And they have less pain and tenderness in their joints, which is from inflammation. And that was true for both endurance and strength sports.
There's been a lot of topics we've talked about lately. They're kind of dancing around this thing. That's why I love this show, because I'm helping curate. Chris is a better expert than me, being in health and wellness longer. But then we get guys like you on that are really doing things both innovative, but it's so ironic, as we were talking pre-episode, things that were happening a while ago that people knew and did that. I don't know where they got buried, doctor, but I'm excited to hear you talk about it.
So, my background, I went to India in 1986 to try to study their traditional system of medicine. I was sort of fascinated by ancient wisdom and modern science. And, I ended up spending a year and a half there studying. I actually met Deepak Chopra there. He was opening up a center. He wanted somebody to come back and help run it using these Ayurvedic principles. And so I came back and co-directed that center with him for about 8 years. And I was also in charge of teaching the medical doctors all about this Ayurvedic, traditional system of medicine from India. And it became really clear because my background is as a chiropractor, and here I was teaching medical doctors. I needed to speak their language. So I started kind of diving into the science of this ancient wisdom. And that's what we do at Lifespa. I've got over 1,500 articles, all ancient medical wisdom with the modern science to back it up, because as we all know, right? So studies show that coffee can be good, it can be bad, soy is good, wheat's bad. You name it, there's going to be science on both sides of that aisle. It's not reliable just to have science alone, but when you have something that's time tested, thousands of years, and still practiced today, like it's still happening today after thousands of years, and you have the modern science, I just feel like that's something we should at least look at. Vata balancing foods that balance and calm your nervous system. And in the winter, when it's cold and dry, we need foods to warm the body and calm the nervous system down. And those foods are harvested in season. So it turns out that our ancestors ate seasonally, right? It wasn't long ago that we didn't have refrigerators, and everybody did that. So the 3 best-selling diets, low carb, high protein, high fat, ketogenic, basically calorie restricted, they all exist in nature in different seasons. And we just try to make one the rule, like be a carnivore. That's the way to go only. When in nature, that was never the way it worked. In fact, it was impossible. Nature's nutritional cycle was annual. It took a year to make all that happen.
That's fascinating. And because, I'm a lifelong marketing guy and believe in capitalism like anyone else, but it's almost like our own consumerism has created, this cycle of doing these things because everybody's selling something, right? And so you're selling this diet. You need to buy more of this and do all of this. And it's just not ever an all or nothing proposition. It goes, like you said, in cycles. It's, makes you kind of think heavier about all that goes around us, doesn't it?
Well, you can still be very capitalistic. You can just buy, be more carnivore-esque in those winter months and be more, vegetarian, in the summer when the food's coming out of your garden faster than you can eat it. And you can calorie restrict in the spring, which was the plan. That's why every culture has religions that fasted at that time of the year.
I do think it takes, specialists like yourself and knowledge, because we're so inundated now. I think maybe the simplicity of the past was the lack of the inundated knowledge and experts and too much information. Sometimes I feel like it's like an overload.
I think when we try to kind of improve upon or make nature better, it tends to backfire on a regular basis. We see that in drugs coming on and off the market on a regular basis. The side effects are just ridiculous. And at least now there's a lot of awareness around how can we get, much better benefits, longer life, better health span, just by following some real simple rules that we just threw out the window in the name of technology. And, here we are on the edge of this massive explosion in technology. We're going to see where that takes us, hopefully back to something more reliable.
G-Rex, she's the creator and co-host of Shit That Goes On in Our Heads. What's up, G-Rex?
Wow. Thank you. What an awesome introduction. I'm so excited to be here.
Talk to us about shit that goes on in our heads. I think that alone and why and how and when you started it sets up a lot of your story and what you're doing, G-Rex. So maybe we just start there.
Perfect. So the podcast started because of me. On Christmas Day 2022, I attempted suicide. thank God for 988. I am alive today and extremely thankful to be alive. There was a little voice in my head saying that things were going to get better. And so, the day after I called 988 and went through a really painful day, I opened up onto social media to let people know what was going on. I'm a true extrovert and an empath, and nobody knew how depressed I was, not even my wife. And I had about 200 people reach back out to me and say thank you, because now they felt seen and heard, and they weren't alone in their own depression. So that was my first healer. And then my second healer was laughter. And my co-host, Dirty Skittles, we worked together. We had worked together for about 7 years. And so every day we would call each other and we would laugh about shit you should never, ever, ever, ever laugh about. But here's what happens when you laugh, right? It reduces that cortisol and gets some serotonin going and gets your endorphins up. And so no matter how crappy the day is, you can circle back on that conversation, just start laughing again. And so it's during one of those conversations, she's like, hey, we should do a podcast. And I'm like, okay, let's do a podcast. So we released our first episode on February 14th, 2023. In honor of my mom. I buried my mom in 1997 on Valentine's Day. And as part of my healing journey, I kind of wanted to change the trajectory of that day and make it a little less crappy. And so we released, and we thought, oh, God, we're just going to do 3 episodes. We're just going to do this as fun. Okay, joke was on us. Come April, we'd already gotten 10,000 downloads. And I'm like, who the fuck's listening to us? In the early days, we were just idiots, right? But when I had thought about my own journey and going through my own mental health, there wasn't another podcast out there like ours. A lot of the mental health podcasts were very clinical, very dry, didn't feel like they were helpful. And we wanted to make sure that in every episode, no matter how hard the subject was, is that we injected a little laughter into that. And people would be like, how can you laugh about really hard stuff? Well, when you interject laughter in with really hard stuff, it makes it easier to digest. Even if you think you can heal yourself, open up to somebody. Find that safe spot. If you don't have a safe space or somebody to talk to, call the 988 Crisis and Suicide Hotline. They are there for that specific reason. It's a lifeline. The other thing that I've done, and I started this practice in January, is I watch a 20-minute funny video every morning just to break up the cortisol. It's the first thing I do when I wake up. And lately it's been raccoons, squirrels, chickens, and goats. Don't ask me why that order, but it's that order. And then after I watch that funny video, because now I've started laughing, I have a gratitude practice and I state out loud what I'm grateful for every single day. The other thing that we've been talking a lot about lately is just find your joy. No matter how depressed you are, you can always find one thing during the day to make you laugh and to bring you a little joy. Joy kind of helps change up the trajectory in your head. And so joy could be maybe a kid laughing or going out and, getting out into nature. I know in some places in the country, it's way too hot to go outside. And in a few months, it's going to be way too cold to go outside. But find that joy inside.
He is the author of a best-selling book, and he is is it clinical social worker? Did I hear that right, Tom?
Licensed clinical social worker, LCSW. The actual guiding of our youth from adolescence to adulthood, that rite of passage is ancient. It's gone, you can find that going back to, way back into antiquity. And in all of the vast ways that we have looked at how you train and teach our kids, early on, there was no communications. They were, distances were so far apart that you didn't have ways of knowing what anyone over the next mound was doing. And when I looked at it, looking back into the future or into the past, I saw that the similarities, even though they didn't communicate, the rite of passage was the same in all cultures. And today it's missing in ours. Mentorship. That's where you actually sit across from a youth and listen to what they have to say, because there's intelligence there. That they see things and understand things and have desires and wants. They're just presented differently. And so you are required to listen differently, but the education's the same. Right and wrong. You don't quit. Never give up. That's a lesson in resiliency that has to be taught. And it's not something you can read in a book to know what it is.
Yeah, Tom, and I think to tag on to that, I loved, reading, like your stuff and some of the lessons and things that you were talking about. And this, I think related to that is this notion of failure. If you aren't even given the opportunity to fail, because you're always catching them, or, you have to be able to go through that resiliency and teach a little bit of grit to our youth. And my wife and I are not perfect, but we set our kids up to do difficult things. And if they're not good at something, that's not a reason not to do it. But we're never going to put them in an unsafe environment. But at the same time, again, I don't want to judge. I hate using terms that are like, coddling, but it's like, I don't know what else to call it. And it's like, you're not helping your child by coddling and not allowing them the opportunity to both learn and fail. And I think it comes obvious to me, but it's not obvious to everyone. And clearly that's something you preach, right? Right, Tom?
Failure is a right. I have the right to fail. I do not have the right to quit. No. Failure. I'm a product of my failures. I'm not a product of success. What does success teach me? You know what it's taught me? I got lucky. You know what failure taught me? This is where you need to work. This is where you're having shortcomings. This is where you need to put your focus. And that's the biggest lesson that you can see the kids just when you're like, you failed. Cool. But you know what? You got back up. Now let's figure out how we can do it better so that you don't fail next time. And it's when young folks know that you believe in them, that you love them, that you care about them, they'll trust you and they will continue to get up and go, because that's what you as the mentor, you as the father, you as the guide, you as the teacher, that was your behavior. That was your action. And because of the bond you had with them, that's what they carry on for the next generation.
Content discussed on this show is provided for reference and educational purposes. The content is not an attempt to practice medicine or provide specific medical advice. Always consult your personal physician for medical advice and proper diagnosis.
Thanks for listening. This is Vibe Science. To learn more or watch full episodes, visit vibesciencepodcast.com. Here's to discovering your highest vibe.